Welcome to the Men That Can Project podcast. I'm your host, Lachlan Stuart, and today we are bringing you another incredible guest. Matt Choi is a Korean American entrepreneur, content creator, and athlete. He is best known for his football, running, and motivational related content on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube, which is where I came across his content. And Matt was formerly a Division One football player. And when I'm saying football for all the Aussies, I'm meaning American football. But now he has set out on a journey to help people reach their full potential in the health and wellness journey and in life. I can't tell you exactly how I came across his YouTube videos. I think it just popped up in the algorithm. I love watching people who are in the running space, in the health and wellness space, because it inspires me. I also get to learn a lot. Now, Matt started his podcast channel in 2020. For those who are watching, you may be watching this on YouTube. I've had one for years, but I've never really put too much time into it. So I'm excited to pick his brain about that today. But also, we're going to talk about transitioning out of football, so similar journey to mine with the rugby, and how that impacted his identity, how he then took the leap from a secure job to then creating his own thing. I think there are a lot of amazing lessons that we're going to get to hear from Matt there as well, but also the community he's creating. A couple of days ago, Matt ran the New York Marathon, and I was following along on socials, and just the energy that this dude brings is next level. So before we dive into today's episode, if you're tuning in for the first time, make sure you hit the follow, like button. If you get value, share it on your socials, tag myself at Lachlan Stuart, and leave a rating and review. Every time you leave a rating and review, it gives us a bit of leverage for inviting more and more guests on, because when they see that people like yourselves are listening to the content and enjoying the content, they're more likely to want to jump on. So I appreciate you supporting me. Finally, if you're wanting to find more direction for your life through building your mental and physical fitness, check out our Strong Men of Value Academy today. It's at the menthatcanproject.com/Strong Men of Value. That's enough from me. Let's dive into today's episode with Matt Choi.
What's up, man?
And I've just had a cruisy morning. Then we've got a training. Well, actually, today's recovery day, so I'll still head in and go for a bit of a roll and a sauna and steam, which would be epic.
Dude. I might actually go do that later as well. I got a workout in, but I'm like in recovery mode right now, and I would like to get a sauna session in.
How'd you pull up from the marathon?
Oh, pretty good actually, dude. I didn't run it crazy. I kind of went there for fun. I was raising money for a friend for leukemia, and I kind of went into the race with the intention of like, just having a good time, and just kind of experiencing New York. And but bro, it was so like, I'm so glad I didn't go in with like the mindset of like, I need to hit a PR. Cause like most of my marathons, I'm not gonna lie, every race I've done, I've gotten faster. And part of that was just my journey of trying to hit a sub 3 hour marathon. But I wanted to soak it in. And New York was so much fun. I've been telling everyone that's a runner or in the running space, I'm like, look, whether you run it, whether you're supporting a friend, whether you donate for a fundraiser or just want to be part of the community, it's so worth it. And growing up in New York, Lachlan, like it was a special day in New York City. I think it was one of the best days I've ever had in New York.
Really? What made you like, or how was it for you personally? Because I know you come from obviously a football background. How was it for you not going out there to hit a PR, like with being such a competitive individual?
I've gotten to have a better relationship with my own ego during this journey of like, being crossing over into the endurance and running space. And, to your point, it's like, it is hard at times because like when you want to challenge yourself, when you're competitive with your own self, it's always like, yo, I want to beat my time. I want a PR. I want to hit this next achievement. And, for me, I've actually gotten at peace with that, with not always trying to pursue that. And it was funny. I was chatting with some of my buddies who got me into the ultra space, that got me into the running space. They were like, Matt, like they were together. They were like, dude, we're really hyped that like you're able to separate that and like at times just enjoy yourself versus it always being about a goal, a challenge, like a successful thing in that sense, like a time. And Dude, it's tough, Lachlan. I'm not gonna lie, it is tough because for me, it's always about that competitive fire. But sometimes it's like there's something
Yeah.
there's bigger ways to make impact outside of that, and I'm able to make impact. Someone watches my video, they're like, "Yes, that's awesome," but some of the conversations that I had by walking, by uplifting other people, bro, like that shit, it means so much more to those people, and it means so much more to others that are watching that it would be selfish for me to only look at myself and be like, I need to hit a PR every time I go to these new races, you know? Because there's so many people that are watching my stuff now that like one conversation might ignite something for them. One interaction might make them realize like, oh shit, I can do this too. Or maybe I want to be positive as well, right? Because it's just it's a return on investment that is a good thing. So for me, I've gotten a lot better at just like getting rid of that expectation.
It's pretty cool. Or for me, it's really inspiring to hear that because I'm very similar to you. And when I came across your content originally from the Home Gym guys here in Australia, good mates of mine, they reshared one of your videos, probably doing a
I love
tib
it.
movement. And then I got sucked into all of your content and love your YouTube pages, especially because it's obviously a bit longer form content. And then I've sort of been drip feeding you messages ever since. And just watching your journey and how you tell story is very inspiring. And then to see you run the New York Marathon, not wanting to do a PR for me, I was like, what? This guy's so competitive and he's not wanting to PR it. I just couldn't get my head around it because I'm super competitive and always
Yeah.
want to do better. But now hearing the different take on it and that it is actually bigger than you now. Like you've got this huge community. I did those Instagram stories of you running with so many people and just
Yeah.
getting the crowd amped up was
I've
beautiful.
dude, Lachlan, I appreciate that, man. And I've gotten a lot of positive responses from not only, some of the people I got to engage with there, but just other people that are just have been watching the journey from afar. Cause I mean, Lachlan, to your point, these previous races, they've been so outlandish, they've been so kind of like competitive internally for myself, right? And for me to just change that hat and wear a completely different hat and like just be a cheerleader and just root these people on. Like for me, I thoroughly like it was the slowest marathon I ran and by far the most enjoyable experience I've had. And like that just says it all, right? Like it's kind of like when people get into that epiphany that money doesn't make them happy, that it's the fulfilling work, the service that actually fulfills their heart. I think for me, Lachlan, like that moment in New York, it was that for me. That this is so much bigger than me just being out here and qualifying for Boston. It's so much bigger than me running a 100-mile race. Like it's the experiences and it's the interactions that leave people in a more positive light that is the true work. And I can, I have plenty of time to go race and go hit another PR. I'm still very young, right? So internally, I feel that. I feel like I have so much more that I want to prove to myself, but I don't lose focus that like there's other ways to impact people, you know?
Definitely. So that's for those who are going to go check out your content after you've got like hundreds of thousands of followers across multiple different platforms. And you're obviously a content creator, entrepreneur, athlete, and just an inspiring individual. And for someone I personally follow because I love your content, and there's about 5 to sort of 10 people that I legitimately watch all their YouTube videos because I'm just sucked into that. Where did it all start for you? Because I know you were a college football player, wide receiver, you played a bit at quarterback. A lot of us Australians, or actually, American football is getting massive over here now, but I don't really follow it too much. But I know you had a journey plagued with injuries, and then your identity shifted as you were sort of transitioning into different stages of your life. Can we go back to the beginning of, I guess starting coming out of high
Yeah,
school or
of
college?
course.
As
To Lachlan's point, like I was a former football player and like that was my identity. And just like most athletes when you're young, like, my North Star was to go earn a college scholarship. Cause like I knew my parents were split. I knew that my mom wasn't gonna be able to afford to send me off to college and go to like a 4-year university like most kids get to do. And as I found my love for football, that became my identity. That became my North Star. Once I earned my college scholarship, I went to play at Monmouth University in New Jersey. I played receiver there, and I was a 4-year student athlete. And, I've had some small successes in college and battled through some injuries that kind of sidelined me through some of my career. But ultimately, at that moment, Lachlan, like my goal was to be like the first Asian American that was Korean to go to the NFL. And whether I gotten like just an invite to camp or just an opportunity, like I wanted that shot ever since I was a kid. And obviously, there had been some guys that were half Korean, Heinz Ward, Will Dems. Like there were players that were half Korean, but there was no one that was like full Korean that was born in America that got to represent, our culture. And that was like my North Star. And when that didn't happen, I didn't get any shots after a college because like, I didn't have a great career really. And I had to kind of sit in that moment, just like most athletes do, like, asking yourself, like, what am I going to do now? Like, you're seemingly what, 22 to 24 years old, depending on, what journey you took to go through college. Like, there's so much life left. And for me to think at that moment, like, oh my
Yeah.
God, like the best years of my life are done. I started to like sit in that. And, there was even a couple months right after I got into my corporate America job that I was kind of like, I don't know if I was like depressed, but I was just like in like a funk. And it was so funny, like I didn't post anything on social media. I was kind of like living that life of like, oh, I have nothing left to show now. I'm done with football. I'm not going to be present on social media and all that, all those feelings that I think a lot of former athletes go through. And that was me. And I worked at this corporate job and I worked there for a year and a half and I just wasn't loving what I was doing. And at some point, my uncle told me this piece of advice. He said, Matt, like wherever you are in life, in entrepreneurship, whether it's as an employee, like there should be someone that's 5 or 10 years older than you that you're looking at and you want to emulate them. You want to live their lifestyle. You want to have the similar morals or values. And I was looking around at the middle managers that were 5 or 10 years older than me, and like they all hated their job. They all were just finding that they were all just counting down the hours till the day was done. And I just knew that I wasn't growing the way I wanted to in that environment. And at that time, dude, I was consuming a lot of like Gary Vee, a lot of Jay Shetty, a lot of David God. Like
Yeah.
I was just trying to transform my mindset. And a lot of that, was just kind of me taking that time to take in the self-awareness and do the inner work. Everyone wants to change. Everyone wants to leave their job or leave the relationship or start a new hobby, but very few people want to do the work that it takes to get to that point. So for me, it was just laying down the foundation and understanding that it wasn't going to happen overnight. But to give you a little backstory, yeah, like that was my journey. And then I found myself getting into the personal training space, then getting into creating content without even knowing like what I was doing. And one thing led to another. And I think that's the beautiful part about entrepreneurship or any journey that you're taking in life. Like you don't have all the answers. You don't have everything planned out and mapped out perfectly. You ask any entrepreneur, and I guarantee you that they don't have every single move planned out. They might have a vision of what they want to achieve, but there's no one can read the future. So you just have to be able to adapt with the change that's happening, with the technology that is in front of us, in addition to just not being closed-minded, right? And I think those are the ingredients that allow entrepreneurs to get quote unquote lucky. And I think Nipsey Hussle said it best in one of his songs. It's like when preparation meets opportunity, that's the game, you know?
Yeah, very well said. I love how the bit of advice you got, because success definitely does leave clues, and many of us, as you said, are feeling unfulfilled and not happy with where our life's at. And if you just look at the people who are a couple of years ahead of you, would you change places with them? And many people wouldn't. So for you, obviously taking the leap out of that, so many people want change, and many of us also know what we need to do to get change, but we don't want to put the work in. What made you different?
I mean, I think there's a couple things, Lachlan. Like it started when I was young. My parents split when I was 3 years old. I had an older brother that was 3 years older than me, who kind of was like the big bro kind of father figure for me. And my mom was a single mom that worked her ass off to provide for both of us, you know? And I'm not going to sit here and say that like my mom did enough to always provide food for the table, that we never had to worry about like where we're going to get our next meal, right? But I think in terms of the ability to accept change, we moved around as kids a lot. And that quickly at that age, Lachlan, I've realized like, oh shit, the ability to treat people with kindness, with empathy, but to treat people the right way was a positive ROI. If you are going to move to a new place and you're going to be an asshole to someone or you're going to be rude, that's a very fast way to not create good relationships. And as I moved around a lot as a kid, I kind of got calloused early with this ability to just adapt. And I think that starting at a young age and then spiraling into middle school and then high school and then, formulating my own friend groups, formulating my own framework around change and adaptation. I think that's kind of where it started. Obviously, to your point, man, change is something that's inevitable. It happens for all of us, whether we like it or not. It's just a matter of how much you want to fight it. And for me, seeing it at that young age, I think it helped me understand that this is something that is bound to happen. And the more you fight it, the more internal stress it causes us as humans. And the more that you're accepting of the fact that there are things that are out of your control that are going to change and that you just need to adapt with it. I figured that at a young age. And then as I kind of got older, man, it happened through the platforms. Social media changed the way that we looked and that how we utilize the internet, right? All of these things happen without us choosing it, right? But it's just a matter of how you take that change. It's just like failure, right? It's just about how you look at it. Some people look at failure like, oh my God, this is the end of the world. Others look at that as like, I'm going to learn from this opportunity and then take advantage of the next one. So for me, it started at a young age and it kind of just developed as I got older and more mature into like the ability to just accept the fact that this is the inevitable.
Would that be one of the ways that you deal with stress? You mentioned stress before, and stress is something a lot of people are experiencing in life, especially off the back of COVID and various other things. But having great stress management tools for you, was it a lot of it coming back to perspective in how you viewed potential stresses or failure and what's to come? Or is there any other, I guess, tools or tricks or tips that you have around managing stress?
Lachlan, it's that. I'll give you a couple of tips after, but the hierarchy of it is the gratitude.
Yep.
Like, I know that I'm privileged to be in the position I'm in right now. So for me, it's like when shit happens, when I lose a brand deal, when I don't make as much money, I really sit back and I reflect. I'm like, dude, you have a 2-bedroom apartment in Austin, Texas. You have clean drinking water. You have a washer and dryer. I have clothes and I have so much gear that I get sent, Lachlan. All the things I wanted 3 years ago when I first started to make content, I just have at the tip of my fingers. Now, obviously, I put in a lot of work to get there, but managing stress in the grand scheme of life, when you live in Western culture and we have devices and a MacBook and a freaking microphone, when there's millions of people that don't have clean drinking water, Lachlan, it gets very easy to understand that you have it pretty damn good. And that's, I think, the biggest punchline. Now, are there things that I do to implement tactics in my day to day that make it easier to handle stress? 1000%. Meditation early in the morning, practicing just the ability to control your breath. Breathing is free, Lachlan, right? The ability to consume air and oxygen is free, but some people can't even sit there in their own thoughts for 5 minutes and just take in breath. So even as something as simple as that, to start my foundation of the day, before I touch my phone, before I brush my teeth, I just sit down in my own thoughts for 5 to 10 minutes and I do the Wim Hof method. That is something that is super practical, that is free, that takes only time that most people don't want to do. But that's a great way to handle stress. Cold exposure, it's a minuscule thing. Your ability to turn the water cold for 10 or 15 seconds every time you shower, it's free. The water gets cold. Your ability to sit there and understand that this is uncomfortable, that this is causing a stress, it causes stress in your internal brain as well. But your ability to handle that is actually building up the muscle to deal with stress, so that when your girlfriend breaks up with you, when you lose your job, when real stress, when someone in your family dies, it's not that it resolves those stresses of life. It's just you cope with it better. Now, those are like extreme examples, right? You lose a family member, you lose your job. I wouldn't wish that on anyone, but someone cuts you off in line, someone cuts you off in traffic. Like, some people get irritated and that throws them off their entire day. And the ability to actually understand that that is a minuscule part of your day, and that if you can't manage that stress, then more times than not, you're not going to be able to manage the stress of real life stressors. So that's where I would take it. Gratitude first, and then the tactics of implementing small stresses in your life. Physical stress, going to the gym is a good way to handle that. And that's why I think it's so important as humans that we have one shot at life. You should take advantage of your physical, your mental health, and your spiritual health. That's the most important thing. When people say that they don't have time to go work out because their job or their boss, I really always question, I'm like, Your boss will fire you tomorrow. But if you're not healthy to function, you're not worthy, you're not valuable to anybody. So you need to be in a good place mentally, physically, spiritually to provide value to anyone. And if you're not there, then you're a liability in that sense.
A company or even our family members, friends, because we're not showing up as our best self. And that's, I couldn't agree more. If we can just start the day, and you obviously mentioned how you start your day with gratitude and thinking and then training, etc. It's such an important thing because no matter what happens throughout the rest of the day, you've got those key things done for yourself. You've given to yourself, and now you can go out and serve, whether that's in your workplace with your family or just having a nice day off, which is extremely important. Going back to your YouTube, so when you started creating content just organically, and then when was the moment you realized that you could make a career out of it?
Great question, and I think this will help out a lot of creators. I think the light bulb went off when I moved to Austin, and this was just 8 to 10 months ago. I think let me reverse that back. Actually, when I lived in Maryland, I had an idea that like I was trending my brand was trending in a positive direction that I would be able to at some point make this a full-time living. When I moved officially to Austin, it almost was like that saying of like when one door closes, three more open, right? And that's how I felt when I moved here,
Yep.
bro. I closed my first brand deal with REI, and that was like a proper brand deal where I'm like, oh shoot, like this is a solid number. Like I'm looking at it, Lachlan. I'm like, oh shit, like I could pay my food, I could pay my living expenses, and then have a little bit of excess to live comfortably and to do the things I want. Um, it was that like the opportunity to move to Austin, it almost was like a sign of like, oh shoot, now there's all these opportunities. Now, obviously, for any human, you need to set yourself up for success. Having saved up expenses to cover your 6 to 8 months of living expenses is always a good strategy anytime you're making a leap of faith, taking a risk in life, right? So I had money saved up where I'm like, all right, well, if I had zero brand deals come in, if I had no money coming in, I would survive for 8 months and be okay. And I wouldn't be able to live lavishly, but I would survive. And I had that in the back of my mind. But the confidence came from just putting in the work and the reps. I made content every single day for 2.5 years before anyone was really watching my content. So in my mind, I knew like I had something to say, and I built the muscle, just like doing push-ups every single day to build up a chest and build up your triceps. I built the muscle of understanding that I can create content at scale. And when brands were hitting me up to do a one-off deal, to do something like a collaboration, a campaign, whatever, I had the confidence that I can get the job done. And a lot of that was when those 2.5 years I was making content in my mom's house, in her living room, in the place I slept in when I was a young kid. I built that confidence because if I could do it in a small suburb of Maryland where there was no one that was watching my shit really, I could do it in Austin, Texas, where it's like a fitness capital here. It's a tried and true place where everyone's moving here. So I think that moment, the taking the leap of faith to move to Austin, in addition to building the repetition and the muscle when I was living at home still, gave me the confidence and then the actual monetary figure when I first got here.
It's awesome, man. That's very inspiring. And I definitely love a lot of the creators I follow on YouTube. You're all based in Austin, where I haven't said this publicly, but I'll say it because perfect time. We're in the process of moving to Nashville,
Nice.
so not quite Austin, but we're heading over to Nashville, which would be great by
I
May
love that.
next year. Just to be our experience in the States has just been phenomenal, and how supportive and entrepreneurial everyone is. It's just like I've never experienced anything like it. So we're pumped to get over there. Going back to like the brand deals and doing all that, do you do all of that yourself, or do you have management or stuff like, because even to close brand deals, did you learn stuff around negotiation and I guess having a self-worth and a
Yeah.
value
I
on
mean, I
yourself?
love this. I did most of it myself, and a lot of it was
That's
just
amazing.
trial and error. In my first corporate job, I learned sales and I learned operations, I learned management, and that like those tool sets kind of transition into this space. Not all the way, but like some of the tactics, right? Like how to negotiate, how to understand your value, how to build insight to other creators to understand how much they're getting paid, right? Like all of those things it's along
Yep.
this journey as a creator that there's no blueprint for this. There's no book that's like you call this is your value, right? Like this is how much you should charge if you have X amount of followers. Because a lot of this game, even for these big brands, they don't even know what to charge. And that's why it becomes this game of like
Mm.
independent contractors and who can sell themselves the most. And that is the biggest game. And if you talk to any sales rep, anyone in sales, they'll always tell you sell shit that you believe in. Lachlan, what better way to sell
Mm.
than selling yourself? Right? Like, what other product would you want to sell? Like, who else am I going to be so gung ho about if it's not me selling what I can do? So I was so confident, and it almost brought me back to that space of selling other shit that I didn't believe in. So many times as a young kid, I was like, oh man, I'm selling things that like I didn't have passion for, and I found that to be so hard. Like I would struggle to sell those things because I didn't believe in it. But when you're selling your personal brand, when you're selling yourself, it's so easy to sell because you're like, damn, you know the value that you bring. Now, to unravel the onion, when I first
Yep.
started to close or get opportunities to get brand deals, Lachlan, I didn't know where to start. I was like, oh shoot, is $500 good? Like, is $1,000 good? Like, shoot, can I charge 2,000? And it's one of those things where you have that first opportunity, and a brand says, hey, Lachlan, send me your rate card or send me how much you charge for one video. And you kind of just like in consulting, you start with a number. And if someone says no, you go back to the drawing board and you say, all right, well, here's my counter offer. If someone says yes, every human is thinking, oh my God, I left money at the table. Just like you do when you're like negotiating a car, right? You
Yeah.
always think, oh, I could have gotten this for
Yep.
18,000 instead of 18.5, whatever. And dude, that was the game. And as I got in touch with more creators, as I got in touch with the right people and the right network, you start to ask the right questions, right? And it's like, then I asked my buddy Hella, then I asked my buddy Brian Mazza, yo, how much did you charge for this? Like, if you don't mind me asking, and most guys don't. Most people in the creator space, they want to help other creators because they've been in those shoes before of not knowing, right?
That's
So
awesome.
there was guys that helped me, and now I sit back in my shoes and I help people along the way too that ask me. And like, Lachlan, money's funny because like money is like taboo. And sometimes people don't want to talk about it because we've grown up in this society, especially as an Asian American. Like you don't really talk about money to your parents. You don't talk about how much you make or, X, Y, and Z, right? So it can be uncomfortable, but you got to find the right people at the right time to ask them for advice and seek the feedback in a way that one is going to be valuable to you, but also valuable to the other human. So that would be the journey. A lot of it was trial and error at first, and then as my network got opened up to more creators that were in the space, once again 5 to 10 years older than what I am, I just was always in this mode of being a learner. And I think if someone can actually contextualize that right now, if they're listening to this, like be a lifelong learner. No matter how good you get at what you do, no matter how good you get at your craft, at your industry, at your hobby, there's always someone that's doing it better than you. There's always someone that you can learn from. And as long as you have that framework, till as long as you live, you will always find and seek the right answers and find the right network. And that was like the biggest lesson I learned from Mark Cuban. And I'm thinking to myself, Lachlan, if Mark Cuban, who's a billionaire, one of the top business entrepreneurs in the world, he's continuing to learn and sharpen up his tool set. Who are we at my age? If you're young as hell, if you think that you made it, that you know it all, you got the game backwards because the smartest people in the world are always educating themselves on the next thing. So be a lifelong learner and you will find the answers along the way.
You're getting me all goosebumped and pumped up over here. It's exciting, man. It's really cool because we've with the podcast that I run, it's been doing really well, and I've never monetized it because it's more just free
Amazing.
resources and getting people like yourself to share inspiring stuff. But we're going down that route now, and then same with YouTube. Everyone's been like YouTube. I'm like, all right, well, I literally watch YouTube
Yeah.
hours a day. So it's good to learn and listen to your journey and story as well. And you've, to be fair, like you've done it really successfully and in my eyes quite quickly. You launched your page in like 2020 or something like that. So the amount of subs you have, it's just a credit to yourself and the energy that you have, the consistency in the work, and also just how well you tell stories and build that community. And that's one thing that I've gravitated to your content for as a result of that. So I'm excited to continue watching your
Thank you
journey
so
there
much,
as
bro.
well. One of the things that you highlighted a moment ago was obviously moving from Maryland
Mm-hmm.
to Austin. How important was that environment? And we did briefly touch on it, but the importance of being around like-minded people. So that environment, how important is that to success?
Lachlan, it is the one controllable thing that every human can do. You can right now listen to this podcast. You're already doing it by listening to this podcast. Changing what you're listening to, changing the people that you're hanging around with, that you're associating with, is the one controllable thing that we are in power of. And I tell most creators, like, if you feel like you're around negative people, if you feel like your parents are negative, if you feel like your girlfriend or boyfriend's negative and they're not giving you that positive feedback, that positive reinforcement, then get around them. Like, stop hanging with them as much. And it's the one thing that it's sometimes tough, because sometimes it's loved ones, sometimes it's the people closest to you, but that's actually the game. It's finding positivity and putting that into your framework as much as possible until it becomes what you actually believe. And relocating is a great way to do it. Now, that costs money, that costs time, that costs sacrifice, it costs risk. If you don't have that yet, the best way to do it is put in your AirPods, put in headphones, and listen to the successful entrepreneurs that are in your space that you look up to, and just consume their content at scale. And if they're positive, they're giving you good information, if they're giving you good feedback, that is the most important thing that you can do. Because right now, without changing your job, without leaving your spouse, without doing any of those things, you can do that right now. And that could be the start. That could be the gateway drug into you changing your framework. And dude, like, Lachlan, my content is going to start to shift towards mindset, because I think this is the game. Everything is in between your own ears. And once you master that voice, the world is your oyster. You can do anything you want in this world. I truly believe it. But you have to shift your framework first. And it starts with by changing what you're listening to and changing the people that you hang with. I mean, that old saying of you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with is the truth. And if you can't find those people around you, there's so much of these form. We have the internet so readily available to us that there's no excuse anymore. There's no excuse. Like, for me, dude, those first couple years, I consumed so much Gary Vee. I consumed so much Mark Cuban, so much Tom Billu, so much Ed Milet, so much freaking all of these guys that were in that space of self-improvement, of self-help, of business entrepreneurs, all of those things. Like, that's the answer. Stop watching Game of Thrones. Stop playing Call of Duty. Stop watching NFL football. Stop watching whatever hobby that you're consuming at nighttime. Consume only positive reinforcement and entrepreneurship and things that you're learning and you want to learn, and watch what happens.
And you're living proof of that. Like, you're literally a result of the work that you've put in and taken that. Because for a lot of people, they're too impatient. They expect to listen to, an hour of Gary Vee and then launch a business and be a millionaire overnight, where it takes time, it takes sacrifices, it takes failure, it takes dealing with, as you said, between the years. It's so confronting sometimes to be able to accept potentially where we are. Maybe we aren't good enough yet to have a successful YouTube channel or to run a sub 3-hour marathon, but you can create a plan, set a goal, and get the right people in your life and do the work to get there. There's just, nothing's guaranteed, but that's the only way to progress and to move forward.
1,000%.
So I think that's an extremely important thing. And once again, podcasts are free. Books cost you,
Oh my
Audible and all that are
gosh.
cheap as
Lachlan,
now.
this is
So,
all
like,
free. It's
just
there's
consume it.
YouTube University is a real thing, and I think for most people, like, there's no excuses anymore. Like, we're so privileged now. We have so much information that there's almost too much. And when you have people that are complaining that they don't know what to do, it's just a sign of laziness. And I get it, because, Lachlan, I was that kid. I didn't open up textbooks in college. I cheated on everything. And it wasn't until I found interests and hobbies outside of football. Once my identity as a football player was done, I was like this open, I was like this open canvas. There was nothing there anymore. And then you start to rewire the brain. The brain is just like software. And the podcast, the books, all that stuff is the software that you can download to reprogram it. To your point, this stuff takes time. I did not just get the success I've gotten because I watched one Gary Vee video. Like, this is the patience is the game. Like, this right here, the dirt, the sacrifice. It's the shit that no one wants to do, but that's the game. That's the answer. And if you can do that consistently, just like push-ups in the gym, just like eating well in the kitchen, like you will see the results. But most people don't play the game long enough to reap the rewards. And that's the game.
Spot on. Who would be 3 influential people in your life that have helped shape the person you've become today?
Wow. I mean, first, I would say my mom, like by far, like just her and my dad too, and just in different ways. Like my mom's ability to handle and multitask and wear multiple hats when me and my brother were young is something that I just admire as a single mother. And I know it wasn't easy to raise 2 young men that, she just didn't understand at that point like how to do that. And like she threw us into sports, which really helped us gravitate towards, male role models, mentors and things of that sort, right? But my mom first. Secondly, like entrepreneurs that I look up to, Gary Vee by far. Like when it comes to the mindset, when it comes to the emotional intelligence of what it takes to be an entrepreneur and how to do it in this day and age, treating people with kindness, with empathy, with doing it not in this way that it's such a brash way to be an entrepreneur, to be a boss. And then in addition, not just the emotional side, but dude, the tactics, maximizing the platforms that are free. TikTok, Facebook, Instagram,
Yeah.
YouTube are free. There's no middleman. You post it and you have a chance to get seen. That is just a game. So his ability to teach from a mindset standpoint and then the tactics, I think right now, if you consume enough Gary Vee and not just Gary Vee on Instagram, like his long form, his like 4Ds, the 4 developments, like all of his like keynotes, you watch that enough and you'll get all the game. And it's the same game that I give back to any young entrepreneur, to any of the clients that we work with through our agency. Like, it's the same tactics, dude. Like, for me, I don't like Lachlan. I get so hyped up about this shit because Gary gives this shit away for free. I just absorbed all of his shit. The best piece of advice Gary ever said was watch what I do, not what I say. And let that sink in for anyone on the other end of this pod. Like, watch what he does, not the things that he says. Because it's super easy to look at Gary Vee and say, he says, fuck college, fuck your parents, and all these abnormal things that are very clickbaity that do well on social media. But if you actually look at what he's doing by diversifying his mediums, by being on every single platform, by understanding how to contextually communicate on LinkedIn versus TikTok versus YouTube versus fucking Instagram, like there's a way to communicate on all these platforms. So definitely Gary Vee. And then I think a third one, once again on like the limitless mindset, like David Goggins by far changed my framework when it came to like understanding what the human potential is. And Lachlan, for a long time, when I was in that rut of that lost identity as a football player, I didn't challenge myself into things that were uncomfortable, that were out of my norm. So when I first got into running, David Goggins was someone that I'm just like, holy crap, this is someone who was 300 pounds 2 times in his life and he lost the weight and he broke himself off. And I'm not saying that you have to go out here and run 100 miles to find yourself, but doing things that are uncomfortable is always a positive ROI. If you want to learn more about who you are, if you want to learn about what ticks you off, what stresses you, how to learn about failure and dealing with judgment, try to do things and set yourself up to almost fail. Fail. Watch what happens when you fail and build the muscle of understanding that you're going to learn from this. So many people don't try new things because they're afraid of the judgment of the failure. So when I was reading his book, Can't Hurt Me, I just got into this mindset of like, I'm in this for myself. I'm going to test myself. I don't care what so-and-so is going to say that follows me or so-and-so is going to say about me running out here in the middle of the rain, whatever it might be. And I think there's power in that. There's power in controlling your own mind. And so many of us let the external validation of other people control our framework. And I wanted to just take control of that. So I would say he was a big piece.
Thanks for sharing those. Every time when I was reading Can't Hurt Me, every time I put that book down, I wanted to go do something extreme. To just like, this guy is unbelievable.
It
literally practices what he preaches.
I think a lot of people have opinions about David Goggins. I think all in all, he's doing a positive thing in this world. he's helping people, and it is in a brash way. It is in a way that, some can't comprehend, but he's helping people in a net positive. He's doing good in this world. And there's so many people, SEALs, people in the military world that don't have respect for him because of his military career. And I get that, man. But net, he's helping people find their potential, and it's creating better humans in this world. And I believe that. And I'm an example of that.
Definitely. Are you doing his 4-4-48 challenge in
I believe
March?
I am. I told myself, Lachlan, that I would do it every year. And I've done it the past 3 years. And yeah, and it's
Oh,
something
wow.
that
How is it? Because I'm doing it this year.
it's a mental battle, just like most things, like you would expect probably. But I think it's just tedious, because like if you think about doing an ultra, like 50-mile ultra, like at least you can do that in like one day, and like you're kind of like you could be done, go to sleep, eat the food you want to eat. But this is just stretched out. 4 miles is attainable by most people, I would say, whether you just walk it, right? Like most humans in this world can walk 4 miles, but it's doing that at a consistent clip where your recovery time is shortened. You don't have as much time to sleep to properly recover. And then you just like, you're removing your entire weekend, right? Like you're just like, that's all you're focused on for those 48
Yeah.
hours, which is an amazing thing because it shows you that with the proper focus, with the proper intention, many feats can be accomplished, right? Like most people say they can't, never, impossible. And they use these words without actually contextualizing what humans can do. And once that gets out of your vocabulary, it's amazing how curious the human brain goes. Like we can do so much more than we think. And not that everyone needs to do those things to like unlock that, but even if you can build that muscle, it does highlight and it does showcase into other aspects of your life. You do that in a physical feat, you quickly realize that, oh, being stuck in traffic's not that bad. Having to stay an extra 30 minutes for work or X, Y, and Z is not that bad. It's not the end of the world. Not having the X, Y, and Z car or the flashiest thing is not the end of the world. And it just, once again, man, it puts things into gratitude, into perspective. Like, I think that's the game. Most people don't have perspective and then they complain about stupid shit. Those types of challenges give you that. And it's a great way to live.
100%. So what's next for you 2023? Like what are you working
Great
towards now?
question. I think there's a couple things. I'm gonna run Boston Marathon in April, and that's gonna be like a big race and just something I've been working
Nice.
for the past couple of years. Um, I have a goal of trying to hit a 250 marathon. I'm gonna try to do it in Houston, and I know it's audacious. And I was talking to my running coach, and I'm like, dude, 7 minutes. He's like, what do you think? And he's like, dude, well, let's just see. So I have that in mind, and I'm gonna put my name in for Leadville, December 1st through the 7th. I think, yeah,
Oh,
the
really?
ballot goes in.
Because that's a 100
100 miler in
miler, isn't it?
Colorado. I'm gonna put my name in for that and see if I get lucky to run that. So we'll see if that happens, and
Oh,
that'll
epic.
be a fun one to kind of it'll be a really fun challenge.
That's meant to be brutal, that
Very much so,
Leadville.
my friend.
There'll be a lot of growth on that one. I look forward to, or fingers
For
crossed for that
sure.
when you get that done. And where can people, I'll put all your links so people can check out your Instagram, YouTube, TikTok and all that, but just a quick rundown, where can people find
Yeah,
you
you guys
on
can
all
find
the
me on
socials?
Instagram and TikTok, Matt Choi 6, and then on YouTube, just Matthew Choi. You'll find me. It'll probably be a bunch of running videos.
It's perfect, man. There's a lot of great stuff in there to learn from as well. And you do also share mindset stuff with your video editing is quite impressive. So just watch the content. There's a lot of cool stuff there, that's for sure.
I love that. No, I appreciate that.
But finally, man, thanks so much for coming on, Matthew. It's been awesome chatting. And next year, I'll definitely come visit. We'll get some runs in, and I look forward to continuing to support your content. It's been
Thank you so
awesome.
much for having me as a guest, Lachlan, and let me know when you're in Nashville because I've been I've been planning a trip. I want to go out there, so we'll link up very soon.
All right. If you got value from that episode, make sure you share it. Tag myself, tag Maddie or Matthew Choi as well. And don't forget to leave a rating and review. going to leave you with this one. Do something today to be better for tomorrow. My name is Lachlan Stuart, and thank you for tuning in to the Man That Can Project podcast.